In this lesson, we're going to learn how to add and subtract fractions. Now, adding and subtracting fractions can be either pretty easy or fairly difficult, depending on the denominator of the fractions we are adding. So let's say they have the same denominator. Say we're trying to add the fractions 4 over 7 plus 2 over 7. Note that they have the exact same denominator, which is 7. If fractions have the exact same denominator, we can add and subtract them fairly simply just by our answer will have the exact same denominator, and then we just add and subtract the numerator. So in this case, it would be 6 over x. Again, because they have the same denominator, our answer is going to have that denominator, and it's going to just simply adding and subtracting the top. So say we have 17 over 20 minus 3 over 20. Again, they have the exact same denominator, which is 20, so that means we can just simply add or subtract the top. 17 minus 3 is 14, and now we can simplify that, which simplifies down into 7 over 10, because we pulled a factor of 2 out of both. So that is the easy way of adding and subtracting fractions. If they have the exact same denominator, it's just simply adding and subtracting the tops. However, what happens if they don't have the same denominator? What happens if we're trying to add, say, 7 over 12 plus 5 over 18? Note that the denominators, 12 and 18, aren't the same. So that means we can't just simply add 7 plus 5. So this is where we have to bring in the concept of a least common denominator. Now this is where our concept that we learned in an earlier lesson about least common multiples. I mentioned back then least common multiples would be used in adding, subtracting fractions. Well, we're going to bring it into play right here. So what we have to do is turn these fractions into fractions that have the same denominator. So how do we do that? Well, we want to find the least common denominator. Well, the least common denominator is the exact same way of saying we want to find the least common multiple of 12 and 18. So we just simply do our steps that we use for least common multiples. So how do we find the least common multiple of 12 and 18? Well, you find the prime factorization, 3 and 4, 2 and 2, 2 and 9, 3 and 3. So 12 is equal to 3 times 2 times 2. 18 is equal to 3. Do that again here. It's equal to 3 times 3 times 2. And again, the least common multiple, we just drop them straight down. 3, 3, 2, 2. Multiply those out, and that equals 36. So the least common multiple of 12 and 18 is 36. That means the least common denominator of our fractions is 36. So we want to create fractions that have the denominator of 36. We want to turn these fractions into those, because then if they have the same denominator, then it's just like these simpler fractions where we can just add straight across. Well, how do we turn 12 into 36 and 18 into 36? Well, that is just simply where 12 times what is equal to 36. Well, in this case, we divide both sides by 12. X is equal to 3. Okay, so that means we have to multiply 12 by 3 to get 36. Similarly, 18 times what gives us 36. Divide both sides by 18. X is equal to 2. So just like we have to multiply 12 by 3 to get 36, we have to multiply 18 by 2 to get 36. So the way we do this is 7 over 12. Like I said, we want to multiply 12 by 3, but we don't want to change the fraction. So we have to multiply the top by 3, because 3 over 3 is equal to 1. If we're multiplying this fraction by 1, then we're not changing the fraction. We're just simply creating a denominator that we want. and now it's just multiplying straight across like multiplying fractions. Same thing with 18. So we have 5 over 18 multiplied. We want to multiply 18 by 2 to give us 36. But that means we need to multiply the top by 2 because 2 over 2 is 1. If we multiply this by 1, we're not changing the fraction, just how it looks. So 5 times 2 is 10. So now that we've done that, we now have the fractions of 21 over 36 plus 10 over 36. And just like that, now we have a least common denominator. We have the same denominator, so we can add straight across just like we did for these fractions. So 36. So 7 over 12 plus 5 over 18 is equal to 31 over 36. And just like that, that is how we add and subtract fractions. I'll go through that again. So you don't have the same denominators. You need to find the least common multiple of the denominators. You have to find out what gets us to that denominator, what gets us to that least common denominator. In the case of 12, it was multiplying it by 3. In the case of 18, it was multiplying it by 2. You multiply that entire fraction by 1, which is 3 over 3. And then the other one by whatever it takes to get to the least common denominator, in this case 2 over 2. And then you set your fraction up just as it was, so you can add straight across with common denominators. So I'll give you guys an example and see if you can walk through that one yourselves. So example, 7 over 12 plus 11 over 15. I'll let you work on that right now. Okay, so again, what's the first step? Well, we need to find a least common multiple between 12 and 15. So we find their prime factorizations. So once we found their prime factorizations, we need to find their least common multiple. 3, 2, 2, 5. 3 times 2 is 6, times 2 is 12, times 5 is 60. So the least common multiple of 12 and 15 is 60. So how 12 times what gives us 60? Divide both sides by 12. Well, that is 5. And 15 times what gives us 60? By each side by 15. Well, that is 4. So now that we found what we need to multiply our denominators by to get our least common denominator, we can multiply the whole fraction by it. So 7 over 12 multiplied by, well, 12 needs to be multiplied by 5 to give us 60. So that means 7 needs to be multiplied by 5. Again, multiplying fractions straight across. Same thing with 11 over 15. Well, 15 needs to be multiplied by 4 to give us our least common denominator, 60. Then 11 needs to be multiplied by 4. Straight across, that's 44. So now we have 35 over 60 plus 44 over 60. And because they have the same denominator, we can just add straight across. So that gives us 35 plus 44 is equal to 79. So, again, 7 over 12 plus 11 over 15 is equal to 79 over 60. And again, we'll just walk through steps of that one more quick time. Because they don't have the same denominators, you need to find a least common multiple of those denominators, which is called the least common denominator. So you find the least common multiple. What number multiplied by the denominator gives us that least common denominator? Well, we find in the case of 12, it's 5. In the case of 15, it's 4. So we multiply the fraction with 12 as a denominator as 5 over 5, which gives us 35 over 6. We multiply the fraction with 15 as the denominator by 4 over 4, which gives us 44 over 60. And then we just add straight across as we did before, which gives us 79 over 60. So I'm just going to give us a couple more examples that I'll let you guys work through on your own, and then I will work through at the end, just because this is a more complex concept. So this example, try and find 5x over 6 minus 3 over 10. I'll let you work on that right now. Okay, we'll go through this quick. So 6 and 10, they are not the same denominator, so therefore we need to find a least common denominator, which means we need to find a least common multiple of these, which is 2 and 3, 2 and 5. 6 equal 2 times 3, 10 is equal to 2 times 5. Drop them straight down, 2, 3, 5. 2 times 3 is 6, times 5 is 30. So our least common multiple of our denominators is 30, so our least common denominator should be 30. So 6 times what gives us 30? Divide both sides by 6. So we should multiply that by 5. Then 10 times what gives us 30? Well, that should be 3. So now that we know what we need to multiply the denominator by, we'll just multiply the whole fraction by that. So 5x over 6, well, we need to multiply by 5 to give us our least common denominator. So we'll multiply the top by 5. So that is 25. And we can't forget the x. And then with 10, so we have 3 over 10 multiplied by, again, 3, because that will give us our least common denominator of 30. 3 times, we need to multiply it by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 over 30. So now we just plug those numbers back in, and this one was subtraction in this case, 9 over 30. So they have the same denominator, so we'll go that there. And now, because 25x and 9 are not like terms, we just simply put 25x minus 9. And that is, again, so 5x over 6 minus 3 over 10 is equal to 25x minus 9 over 30. And just for the sake of practice, say we had those same fractions, only now we're multiplying them by each other. This is just kind of review from multiplying, dividing fractions. Well, like we said, it's multiplying, so it's just straight across. So 15x, 6 times 60. Now we find the simplify the fraction, 3 and 5. 60 is 5 and 12. 3 and 4. So we have 3 times 5 times x, because that's 15x, all over 5 times 3 times 4. Well, we can cross out these common factors, so that is equal to x over 4, or we can also call it 1/4 x.